Hey everyone, we're going to get started. Please, you can see really close. Okay, this is better. Okay, I'll do my best. Let me know if I trail out. You can just interrupt me and call me out. But hello everybody and welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. My name is Aisha Marothra. I'm an organizer with We Power DC, and we are a partner of CCAN's both in hosting the event tonight, but also in the campaign to stop Project Pipes. We're here today to hear from Cheryl Maloney, who led the Mi'kmaq campaign to protect sacred land from a dangerous pipeline project proposed by Alta Gas, Washington Gas's parent company. For nearly a decade, Cheryl and her campaign fought back as Alta Gas lied and schemed in their pursuit of this pipeline expansion. But in the end, Cheryl, her sister April, is also here with us tonight, and their campaign won. They're here all the way from Nova Scotia to tell us about how they did it and help us draw some lessons for our own ongoing efforts to combat Alta Gas's greed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Here in the DMV, we know about Alta Gas's greed all too well. Alta Gas is the parent company of our for-profit energy utility, Washington Gas, and most recently, Washington Gas asked for $672 million from the district for Phase 3 of Project Pipes, which is their endeavor to raise rates to do unnecessary gas pipe replacements on all gas lines in DC, whether or not they're leaking. They said that they need to do that because they don't know where all the leaks are. So, Washington Gas was also telling on itself. It's been prioritizing profits this whole time while neglecting to track and fix gas leaks. And now it's asking for even more money from all of us to reinvest in its soon-to-be obsolete gas infrastructure that wreaks havoc for our climate and our health. But last week, the Public Service Commission rejected Washington Gas's Project Pipes Phase 3 plan. That victory is the direct result of organizing by CCAN, Earth Justice, Washington Interfaith Network, Nature Forward, We Power, Interfaith Power and Light, Sierra Club DC, Extinction Rebellion DC, and many other groups and individuals who called and wrote to their local elected officials and the PSC, voicing their concerns about the project and demanding that it be rejected. So while we're still staying vigilant about Washington Gas's next move, we should be celebrating our wins. Because from Nova Scotia to the DMV, we are winning the fight against Alta Gas, its subsidiaries, and all of the other fossil fuel companies profiteering off of our communities and off of our planet. Still, there is a lot of work left to be done against Washington Gas. So tonight, Cheryl Maloney will be sitting down with CCAN's Executive Director, Mike Tidwell, to talk about the Mi'kmaq campaign against Alta Gas, and then we'll open up the floor for questions from all of you. But before we turn the floor over to Cheryl and Mike, I'd like to invite Jessica Swan from the Piscataway Conoy tribe to say a few words. So thank you to all of you again for being with us tonight, and now please join me in welcoming Jessica Swan.
First contact was made here in Southern Maryland. Just out of curiosity, how many people in this room are native to DC, Maryland, or Virginia? Quite a few. And out of that, I'm sure that a lot of you may have heard of the Piscataway Conoy tribe or the Piscataway people, but I'm sure that there are probably more of you that unfortunately haven't. So a little bit of history about us. The Piscataway ancestral lands stretch from the western banks of the Chesapeake all the way across Maryland into northern Virginia, as well as the northern panhandle of West Virginia. It's from southern Maryland all the way to Baltimore City and Baltimore counties. Now, throughout all of these lands, we actually no longer own any land. It was all taken away from us and stolen throughout history, which it's a very unfortunate reality to be in, but it is what it is. We currently are working to regain land for the tribe in order to provide a safe place and just a home space for us to be able to share our culture and our history with people here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia areas. being said, it was very important for me to come out and talk to you guys tonight because as stewards of the land, we have to continue to protect this land that is DC, Maryland, and Virginia in every way that we can. As a representative of the Piscataway Conoy tribe, I already have a sore spot because of the land that was stolen. And we have not been able to do it on our own by standing up to these major corporations. We need all the support that we can in order to continue this fight. We currently have acquired some land in the last year. They're in southern Maryland. For the first time in 400 years. My family and I were able to acquire this land through our nonprofit, through Piscataway Eyes, and put it in a land trust for the tribe itself, so that way they never go without a place to call home ever again. We continue to provide opportunities for the Piscataway youth and continued education for just enrolled tribal members. And we really are just trying to get out and about and kind of bring some light to what we're trying to do. Just kind of our motion and everything. So I am happy that I was able to come here and talk to you guys and just kind of shed a little bit of light about, don't forget that there are still Native people here. And we are throughout this state, they're throughout this district, and there is a lot of history right here that we would be happy to share with you, and we're continuing to create. I do just want to thank everybody for allowing me to come and speak, and I do thank you all for your support in making sure that we continue to be stewards of the land and protect what we have here and keep it as sacred as we possibly can, even though, these big for-profit companies, they don't exactly come ask for anybody's permission, they more so ask for forgiveness, but let's not give it to them. Let's do what we can to go ahead and make sure that this doesn't continue and that we keep Washington Gas out of DC as much as we can and not spend that unnecessary resources, okay?
Thank you, Jessica. And we're going to start our speaking portion tonight with a quick video.
Celebrating the Cats Nation.
Rising up for protecting our lands and waters.
That's the Grassroots Grandmothers, celebrating the cancellation of the Alta Gas project with about 50 community members and supporters. Alta said last week it will decommission the project. Grassroots grandmother, water protector Doreen Bernard of Sabanganagity First Nation says from the beginning, Alta Gas did not consult with the Mi'kmaq.
Well, our treaties never ceded land. Our treaties are peace and friendship treaties. And they were always meant for us to take care of this land and this water, for us to always be able to sustain ourselves as a people. And I think it's time that, the rest of Canada embrace those things as well.
In 2014, the Mi'kmaq slowed traffic along the Trans-Canada Highway, calling for a halt to the Alta Gas project that planned to store natural gas in salt caverns. They would have been flushed with water, and the salty wastewater pumped by pipes for 12 kilometers into the Shubenacadie River. The Mi'kmaq say that would have killed the fish and destroyed the river. Water protector Cheryl Maloney says the years of opposition against Alta Gas finally paid off. Last year, the Nova Scotia Supreme Court ruled Aboriginal title and treaty rights were not engaged in the consultation process.
And the court case says that you can't just say you consulted on environmental issues. You have to consult on Aboriginal issues. You have to consult on treaty rights, Aboriginal title, and Aboriginal rights.
Over the last 7 years, the Mi'kmaq protected the water from the Alta Gas project. Bernard says it's a step towards education.
About treaty rights, about the history of the Mi'kmaq and Indigenous peoples, I think it's really important that this is a good step in the right direction for reconciliation in Mi'kmaq for sure.
Matt Arsenal teaches grade 7 at Radcliffe Middle School. His students make cards to thank the grandmothers for protecting the water.
I didn't ask them to, but they told me Get us some paper, some markers, some pencils. You're going to a celebration feast. We need to send some cards to let the grandmothers know that we appreciate the protection of the river.
Meanwhile, the Treaty Truck House, built on Crown land, will stay and has become a place of ceremony and teachings. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Jabukduk, also known as Halifax.
Welcome everybody to Foundry United Methodist Church right here in Washington, D.C. It's really great to see all of you. We've got a packed house, and this is a really special occasion. We are so glad to have Cheryl and April Maloney with us tonight. My name is Mike Tidwell. I'm Executive Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and we want to welcome you to this conversation with Mi'kmaq Indigenous grandmothers from Nova Scotia, Canada. As you saw in that video, against all odds, the leaders of that campaign helped defeat a $200 million methane gas pipeline project proposed there by the same company, again, that owns Washington Gas, Alta Gas, based in Calgary, Canada. And so we invited two leaders from Nova Scotia, that Nova Scotia campaign here tonight. Cheryl will be here on the stage. April, where are you? Raise your hand, April. April, we saw a lot of her photographs when you were coming in, and you're going to see some more later. Again, in 2014, Alta's subsidiary, confusingly named Alton Gas, so you'll hear us use those two names interchangeably for the Canadian version of Alta Gas, 7.5-mile pipeline from the Shuby River running to 5 different salt caverns to store gas. And then to retrieve it, when market prices go up, when there's a shortage, when they can make more money, and then export it, probably down here to DC, because, Alta owns Washington Gas. And the water that would have been required to flush that gas, to export it, put it back on ships, and pipelines, would have brought lots of salty water into the sacred fishery of the Shuby River. But after 6 years of fighting, and Lord knows campaigns against fossil fuel companies don't happen in 6 months. At a minimum, they seem to happen in 6 years or more. The Mi'kmaq won an incredible Supreme Court decision in Nova Scotia. And soon after that decision, the pipeline was canceled. And what I'd like to ask you to do tonight is listen carefully, and we hope that you will hear many parallels between what Alta Gas tried to do with a pipeline in Canada and what they're trying to do, again, right now, using similar methods to build billions of dollars worth of pipelines across the DC region that warm the planet and fleece ratepayers. We too, as you heard earlier, we got a partial victory last week, which is good, but we have so much more to do. So once again, I want to welcome Cheryl Maloney. Cheryl, my first question for you is, you told me earlier today that your Mi'kmaq name translates to Rolling Thunder Woman. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the community that you come from.
Oh, I got the mic. I'm not used to having a mic. I don't have anything but vision. I can't walk back and forth on the stage. But here I am. Can you hear me? No. I guess I get to walk around the stage with now I have something, a security blanket. I'm used to being on the floor in a circle. I can talk about myself, or you can Google me. I have 7 sisters. My dad was a chief, spent his years making sure that people didn't forget about our treaties, as did his grandfather, great-grandfather, right up into the signatories of the treaty, who is our direct descendant. So that's a little bit of where I come from and the fight that we always have. The Mi'kmaq people have always fought. We're so tired. We're like, oh my God, we're still fighting, and we're winning case after case, and we're still fighting. So that's, I don't want to talk about me so much. I want to talk about what happened that day when my brother came and said, hey, they're going to build a pipeline and dump all this salt brine in our river. And I said, what are you talking about? I'm on all these committees. In politics, I'm aware. I have a law background. I'm an active citizen. How did I not know about this? So, after a couple glasses of wine, and don't anyone begrudge me for that, my brother, you gotta do something. I said, all right, let's give it 4 days. We'll do something. Let's think about this. So, we planned a 4-day intervention to see what we could do. I was busy. I was President of Native Women. I was, running across the country, creating awareness over missing and murdered Indigenous women. So I didn't have a lot of time. And we started, just a few of us. We called in the grandmothers, a few of the knowledge, I don't want to say grandmothers or grassroots grandmothers or anything like that. I called in the knowledge holders and the teachers that I look up to. And we went from there. We started a sacred fire. We had a roadside protest to make sure Nova Scotians knew what was going on, because we didn't know. When we started our event, we ran into the church looking for our priest that speaks Mi'kmaq. Not because we're colonized and Christianized, it's because we have a papal bull with Rome that allows us to exercise our spiritual religion anywhere, anyhow we want. Whether it's in church or whether it's outside the church, and we're the only tribe in the world that has this arrangement. We are also the first nation to sign a treaty with the United States of America in the Watertown Treaty. So we come from a long, long history of amazingly smart heads of states and grandmothers and visionaries and seers. When the non-natives came to our shores, we had prophesied that they were coming. We knew they were coming, and we were given instructions. And we were warned about all these things too. So that's a little bit about my people, the Mi'kmaq. So all of a sudden we have this beautiful, pristine river in the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia, highest tides in the world. You'll see pictures if you Google them. The fishing boats will be on the wharf, and then 6 hours later, they're on the bottom of the ocean floor. And this company in Calgary thought, hey, we can just dump our garbage in there, and that tide will take it in and out. I'm like, no, that tide will not take it in and out. You don't know our tide. And there's a great story. They didn't know our tide, and I'll tell you about the mudfloods. So one of the hardest things was like, what is going on? Trying to understand why they wanted these caverns empty to store what they call natural gas, but it's actually frack gas. We have no natural gas stores that they could get anywhere in Nova Scotia offshore except for to come fracking. And then we thought, they said, oh yeah, we're going to bring jobs, and this is for Nova Scotia, our energy rates are going to go down, right? So Nova Scotians are letting them do what they want. And I said, wait a minute, we had researchers, we started our small group, we got a little bigger, controlled group. If you want to do a movement, you have to do controlled growth. And I'm going to tell you something else too. Each one of you guys, there was only me, my sister, and my brother. And it only takes a handful to shut down something that's wrong. If it's wrong, you can beat them. And my sister, the photographer and filmmaker and everything else, we'd be at events, there'd be a few people, and she would make it look like there was hundreds. So, I know he's looking for the next question, but I want to share that one by one, the more we found out about this company, the more we found out they're not good for Nova Scotians. It doesn't take our gas prices down. It was meant to be frack gas shipped off to the United States, into Maine, into Boston, over here. And Nova Scotian, the majority of the province, doesn't have natural gas. But they were telling this story to people. People are just believing them. They trust them because they want to. So, it was a slow process of finding out what the heck is going on. And so that's kind of an introduction to me and the issue and how we ended up sitting up here, with you guys today. So you can sneak in another question.
So, excellent introduction. Alta Gas specializes in fossil fuels. We know that, frack gas. They seem to care little about the fact that it warms the planet. Methane leaking from the pipes, you burn the gas, it turns to CO2, and that leads to climate change. And I'm just curious, what are you all in Nova Scotia seeing in terms of climate change right now?
Well, in order to see, I won't talk about the state of climate change right now because we're in a drought that we're all sharing all over the world. In New Glasgow, we have this fifth highest temperature today in the world, and that's about 15 minutes from the Bay of Fundy, Alta gas area. What I will talk about climate change is that when Alta said they did their science, we found, and I'll tell you a little background. You need a little background. This project they had tried to make happen 8 years prior. They got provincial permits back in 2008 or 6 or something, very early. And so when they started back to work, when we noticed them, there was 8 years, 12 years, 10 years of climate impact studies. There was 8-10 years of Aboriginal treaty rights changing and developing in Canada, where our rights are constitutionally protected. So the Indigenous peoples have higher rights than other people. And what I found is other people were all coming to us because there was no rights for the normal person. So one of the things they did is they had a little talk, go back and forth once a month doing their science. And you've seen us up there, getting in the river and doing our own science and things. We had to start countering their work, their science, and what they were saying. We had no clue what was going on. And then to realize that their science are based in, they were looking for a Tommy cod fish in June. It runs in January. And they said, there's no Tommy cod there. There's no concerns over the Tommy cod. There's zero. Right? And we're like, come on. Everybody that lives and knows that river and that province and fishermen and everyone know it. That was the problem. Alta gas isn't a person. They're not human. They don't care. They have stockholders. And we can scare them. I had Al-Non, what is that? Anonymous. They did all kinds of things, track their stocks, and somebody shut down their website one day, but I don't know who that was. But they don't have feelings. They don't care. Their job is to go to the highest bidder and to make a profit. And that's what they were doing with Mi'kmaq and my people. And that profit wasn't even going to be for us. They said there was jobs there. First they said there's 2 jobs. but it was specialized. Somebody out of province would come. But then when our chiefs that have the pen, all of a sudden there's more jobs. And we had a chief that was 5 hours away say, it's good for Shubenacadie tribe to have this project. It'll create jobs for them. I'm like, you don't live on my river. How dare you tell us what's good for us? And that's what's happening with Alta gas and oil everywhere. They come in and tell you what you want to hear. And there's nothing they have to do to follow up on it. There is absolutely nothing. We can go to their shareholders and they'll just buy and sell, and then somebody else is moving on in. And I know we have questions to follow and everything, but I think one of the most important things we can do as a society right now is to make the oil and gas industry accountable to people. How? One, you gotta remove this profit. Two, those old ancient charter things, legislation that gives them power, those need to be open, reviewed, and chewed up and spit up. There should not be corporate Canada or corporate US being our answer to climate change. We're going to go through disasters. Our community is 5 square miles. They removed us from the river, put us where there's no hunting and fishing. And then we had to fight 280 years to be allowed to leave to hunt and fish in our territory. But we did that. We've been fighting our whole lives. We've done the fight. But you don't know who you're fighting with. Because the head guy at Alta, they'll fire him and hire somebody else. Or another energy, conglomerates. So I think it's radical to start at the top, but I go right to the top. Go right to the top. Don't be afraid. I was talking, I'm only learning. I don't know everything about the laws and the situation, the treaties, the rights, or anything here. But if there's an ancient document from 1800 that gives them a free pass, and what's that called? The charter, what's it called exactly? Washington Gas Charter from 1800 has no climate lens. So with Alta Gas, we were going through a drought during this fight. And our salmon were not making up the rivers. Because the Bay of Fundy river system is this big, huge river system that goes to the province and then dwindles off to all the little streams and brooks. And it wasn't getting through. The fish weren't getting through. And Alta said they did their homework. They did not look at, through a climate lens, what their project was going to do. And they said if the salinity in that river was at this level, we won't brine that day, or we won't dump. Every day that summer was high levels of salinity because of the droughts and climate change impacts. So they never ever put it through a lens. And if you guys want to open up this and have a change the way things are done, then you gotta do that climate lens with everything. Do that ownership. Take responsibility. And it doesn't mean everybody or somebody or CCAN or anyone. We were just citizens that just stepped up. And we created a team, and we created a movement, and we created something that was important and true. And with that, I'm going to stop and let you in again.
Well, speaking of profit and the money that Alta Gas wants to make at the expense of Indigenous communities in Canada and people like you who live in Washington, D.C. and surrounding areas. Last week, June 12th, when the D.C. PSC ordered that Project Pipes 3 be put on hold and that Washington Gas was required to come up with a pipe maintenance plan that actually conforms to the city's climate goals of carbon neutrality by 2045. And when that happened, you can go online and look at the U.S. Stock Exchange under Alta Gas. their stock price went down. I mean, it takes a dive, and it still goes down. Cheryl, we saw in the video, right out of the gate in 2014, you guys did civil disobedience. You slowed down and obstructed part of the Trans-Canada Highway. You also built your sacred fire along the river. You've done a lot of really creative things in this campaign. And as organizers here, we're always looking for that next thing that gets public attention, that draws media attention, that gets the word out. Talk about the different creativity that you brought to the campaign and why.
Oh, because I have a law background, we're always testing the law. I never practiced the law, but I went to law school and I went to my elder and Mi'kmaq seer, medicine man, whatever. I don't say medicine man, but he was a spiritual leader. And he's a blind man. And he said, Cheryl, you go to law school. He said, then you learn Indigenous law. So I really did that, but I didn't realize I did that until we beat Alta Gas, because I'm like, every turn was, Indigenous laws. Spirituality, culture, connection to the land, connection with each other, reconciliation with the neighbors, because up until that point, I didn't know my neighbors. And then all of a sudden, the non-native communities were there. They were involved. What was your question again?
Creativity.
Oh my God. I went to bed at night, I'd wake up 4 or 5 in the morning, and I'd get really good divine intervention, and I swear it was from my ancestors, because I'm not that smart. I really did think that. But we had a lot of creative moves, one ahead of the other, and we were all tired. You have to keep your troops rested. You have to keep them going, and you can't use the same people all the time, because they're going to burn out. You can't allow people to take over the agenda, right? But what we did is we would, when you do civil disobedience, you have to make sure what you're doing has a purpose. Some people just want to protest and protest and protest without the consequences. When we did the civil disobedience, it was because nobody in the province knew about this, and they were 8 years at it. And they had 8 years, they had permits. But they withdrew from the project for 8 years, and the permits collected dust. And then they came out one day and started making pipelines. This is what they did. They didn't say, hey, we're going to come back at it again. Maybe Nova Scotians want to know what's happening. Maybe their climate impacts have changed. Maybe there's more concerns. Maybe there's more laws now for protecting Aboriginal life or species at risk in the river. They didn't. They came in, dusted those off, and just laid the pipeline. And I remember the media guy coming and said, Cheryl, the pipe's on the ground. You think you can stop this? And boldly, I'm like, yes, Rick Grant, CTV News, I can. Why I said that is because it's wrong. It was just so bad for Nova Scotia. Just so bad for Nova Scotians, for the environment, and we didn't even have natural gas in 95% of the province. But they didn't care. They say whatever they wanted to say. So we had to be one step ahead of them, and when our people needed a rest, we did a Twitter storm, and we targeted 5 politicians or 5 people that needed to know what was going on. And we had our people and our organizers go home and sit there and spend half hour every day for 5 days. So one day we target the Minister of Climate Change impacts. And they said they didn't have to, the climate isn't going to be a concern. They didn't get involved in permitting and everything, and we had to find every reason why the Minister of Climate Change impact had to be involved. And lucky for us, the poor salmon were dying and not getting up the river. And we're like, well, look at that. And for us, we had our our truck house built on floodplain, but because it was a dry summer, we didn't know until we got flooded out in the fall. And I think there's videos or pictures of us just all running, getting our stuff in the truck house, but the truck house is still there. And if you ever come to Nova Scotia, I'd love to take you guys and tour you to the truck house. And you won't get flooded out. They lifted it up and stuff, so it's still there. It's and for you guys that don't know what a truck house is, that was one of our strategies. They wouldn't let us to the site where they said we were trespassing. So we actually turned their signs around, we put our treaty on it, we moved the rocks. Our brother went driving on the bank, he broke and breached and went in, and we all followed. Because we were so afraid to do anything. We were afraid. Everybody was afraid. The non-natives that came up were afraid to be doing something because we follow signs. If there's a rope, we go all around it. You see us at the airports. We go all over the place. We're afraid to break these laws. But this company wasn't afraid to break laws. And not just Canadian laws or U.S. laws, but natural laws. Indigenous laws that protect and respect the land that we live on, that we share, that our ancestors came from. They had no problem breaking that sacred connection. And that's what the problem with the world right now is. All these for-profits and all the people that should be involved are sitting in places like this without any power. You know, you don't have that. And with the Mi'kmaq people, we did have a little bit of power to get our foot in the door, and then we went and changed the law. And now that door's wide open and Alta Gas left, but they came here, and I'm so sorry. You know, I'm so sorry for you guys. They're not, by nature, any better than any other company. By nature, they're all pretty bad because they don't have a soul. They don't drink water. They don't swim in the sea, you know. They're not dependent on everything and each other the way we are. So we did get creative. We did a lot of things, and one of the things we did is we dropped traps and made the water sacred hunting, fishing grounds for the Mi'kmaq people, which was a constitution protected right, and one of the movements that actually won the case. The other thing is, I had a vision, and my dad, who was the chief, has passed, showed up in the truck house, which is a treaty clause. The truck house is a treaty clause that allows all Canadians to trade with the Mi'kmaq. And we were able to build a truck house on the Shubenacadie River for the purpose of trade. So we built it in a weekend. The Minister of Indian Affairs, or Fisheries, we occupied his office we would just want to visit, but the elders said we're staying. So next thing we're occupying the office. And so they wanted to meet us at the tribal office with the chief and the leaders. And we said, no, this ain't a bad administration issue. This is rights holders, Mi'kmaq people that have that connection to the land. We'll meet you at the truck house on the river. And they said, okay. It was Friday afternoon. We didn't have a truck house. We didn't have 2 cents. We were just getting past there. So we went and built a truck house in a weekend. And that truck house gave us treaty clauses and constitutional law protections for every citizen in Canada to come to the truck house to trade with us. So now it became legal for them to come. And people started coming. The media started coming. That was key. Then you guys, if you ever come to the truck house, you'll see the most beautiful, pristine, tidal river coming in and out. April's got some beautiful footage, beautiful pictures. That's our home in our sacred land. It really, really is. So always one step ahead of them. They were threatened because I became a member of our chief and council. The reason I ran in that election to get elected was so that I can direct our leaders on how to answer Alta Gas. So I got on that side too. And then They started threatening my chief and council and my community. They said, we're going to sue you guys. You're making us lose money every day, $1 million, $2 million. We're going to sue you. My community, because I was a council member. And so our chief and council were fearing not going because they need to make payroll for hundreds and hundreds of people. So we had another fire. Called the ancestors back in at the sacred fire. The fire was over. We did a media release. I got up in the morning. I think it was 7, 8, 9. My elder, 86 years old, slept on the ground that night by the fire. Isabel Montgomery, she wrote a book on residential schools in Mi'kmaq. I got up, I went live, and I said, all right, you want to sue my community? We have the highest rate of child poverty in Canada. Mi'kmaq reserves in Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq reserves, highest rate in the country. We are forced to reservations. Our kids were at the residential school. It's just a few miles down from the Alta gas site. I said, are you guys serious? You want to sue the Mi'kmaq people and cause harm to children and families for your bottom line? Fine. I quit. I stepped down. We had media all across the country. It was something, that movement, that resonated with everybody because they didn't believe in anything enough to quit. But if you have a responsibility to your ancestral lands and your children, and they're going to hurt your community, and they're going to threaten you the way they did to us, I think you guys would quit too. Because it felt so good to say, all right, Alta Gas, I quit. I'm going to block this road right here, where you're coming in. I'm not leaving. Fine. And they backed off, threatening to sue my band and my community at that point in time. But, we started winning. The drills left the province. They still hung on for a few years. We're winning in courts. The pandemic came. The pandemic was great. We won our case. And then the judge in the case said, you have to go back and consult with the Mi'kmaq Armed Rights. And you have to tell them what you think their rights are and how your project's going to impact them. Total reverse. The province is still trying to reverse that decision, but nobody's given them the chance because we're not challenging it. But during the pandemic, I built a governance structure with the community, consultations over the pandemic, or we had some consultations done, where we took the open gas decision and we built it into our process. And we made it where the members, if your rights are impacted, and they're going to tell us, the Mi'kmaq have title and treaty rights and Aboriginal rights here, and dumping salt brine into there is going to kill their fish. Right? They have to admit that. They can't deny it. The judge said if you don't admit what you're doing and how much it's going to, then how can you say you're consultant on something? The court decision there puts it all on the table. So we built a governance process. So by the time the pandemic was over, because the judge said, when the pandemic's over, the state emergency is lifted, you can start your consultation. I know I didn't want a pandemic, but boy, I sure appreciated that extra time to build a really, really strong process. So these creative steps and strategies, they're hard. They're hard. Are we willing to quit and get arrested? Some people get arrested, but they wouldn't arrest me and my old Annabelle and Isabel, the elders that you'll see up there. I said, come on, arrest us. Cops, come on. No, not arresting you, Cheryl. We're not giving you that. I was like, fine. I'll get arrested somewhere else.
So, Alta Gas ignored your treaty rights They promised all kinds of jobs that were fictitious. They said this gas would benefit your community even though your community didn't use gas. Their environmental studies were a joke. Washington Gas, owned by Alta, has been fined $1 million by the Maryland Public Service Commission for lying about their, for not meeting their commitment to customer service when they were bought by, when Washington Gas and Alta merged in 2018. There were promises made by Alta for Maryland, Virginia, and DC customers. They've been fined $1 million for lying. They've been fined for claiming that gas is clean, for marketing gas is clean. They have been threatened with an $8 million fine in DC because they promised to bring wind and solar, 20 megawatts of wind and solar to the district, which they have not done. So these promises, these lies, these deceptions, it's happening here. And I wanted to ask you, Cheryl, one of the successes of your campaign there in Nova Scotia was you built a real coalition. It wasn't just the Indigenous community. You said earlier that the Indigenous community alone may not have been able to pull this off. You brought in the faith community, landowners. Tell us about that coalition building, because that's what we have to do here in this region. We have to reach out to everybody. Not everybody in the DC region understands that Washington Gas, in my opinion, I've been fighting fossil fuel polluters for 22 years. I think Washington Gas has reached the level of the worst I've ever seen with all the things that they've done recently. So we need a big coalition because not everybody knows about this yet in the region. We need your help to spread the word, to reach out to artists, to reach out to the Indigenous community, reach out to vulnerable communities, and do more of that kind of coalition building. So tell us what you did to build that coalition.
Well, when we started on the roadside protest, and you've seen some of the pictures, and when we did the first movements, there was me and my sister, another sister, he was taking pictures, and a lot of non-native citizens from the local area. First thing the newspapers were saying was, Mi'kmaq protesters. I said, there's only me and my sister. There's only 2 Mi'kmaq there. We had 10, 11 people. They were saying they're all Mi'kmaq. They did look Mi'kmaq. They were not Mi'kmaq. But boy, they wanted to dismiss us by saying Mi'kmaq protesters. And I remember talking to a grandfather at the hockey rink. And the hockey rink is sacred. He's talking about how it's just like an Indigenous issue, Cheryl, I said, well, it's not. But what he told me really resonated, so I went back. And I thought about the people that had showed up that day that didn't have the voice, didn't have that Aboriginal historical rights that come with the land. They didn't have that. They had nothing to hang on to but us. So what we did is we used our platform but gave voice to all the other groups. So the landowners, we coordinated the landowners that they bought a house on a dead-end street in rural Nova Scotia. Nothing going by there, 5 or 6 houses. All of a sudden, the lights, the noise, the trucks, 24/7 drilling over the salt caverns, and they couldn't even have a say. There was no consultation to them that this company is going to come in, dig out salt caverns under your home that you're here to retire in or raise a family or run a business. They had nothing. So we gave them an opportunity. We prepped them, we taught them, we helped with the media release, and they went and did their own intervention. And they were scared. I remember the lady that was doing it and her husband, she was so scared, she was shaking. And she was leading this caravan to the site where the cabins were to protest. Time check, 1 minute. Okay. So we led them there, and we made sure there was no Mi'kmaq around so nobody could say it was a Mi'kmaq protest. No signs, no plates, no brown faces, no blonde, green-eyed Indians like me. Nobody. And the girl was driving. She said, Cheryl, I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what took over. She said, but I seen this big commercial truck coming and I stepped on it and I pulled in and I spun around and I stopped in front of them. And she turned around. But she was so scared, and it was fear. It was fear. But you know what? You don't have anything to fear by skipping those lines that ropes us in and tells us go this way, because what you're dealing with here is not fair. You're not dealing with a fair person, a fair company, fair mandate. You're dealing with a corporation that's there for profit. And they pay off, I don't care who's listening, and buy and lie, the people with the pen. So there's a committee giving them permission. That's who they're talking to. They're not going to come here and talk to you, none of you. They won't. You're on your own. Unless you step up, get over that fear, do something.
Well, we're going to show a quick video in just a second, and then we're going to open it up to questions. We want you to see some other of the activists from Nova Scotia that were involved in this campaign. But Cheryl, you told me earlier today that the act of organizing, of having a purpose-driven life to stop injustice, just brings joy. You get to know your neighbors that you didn't know before. And we've seen this at Chesapeake Climate Action Network and elsewhere. Fighting for the health of the planet is good for your mental health. Here we are tonight. I'm sure we're all going to meet at least one new friend here tonight. We want you to get to know each other. Coming together to stop this injustice. Doing it in Nova Scotia. Doing it here in the Washington, D.C. area. This same company, Alta Gas, trying to do the same thing. But people like us saying no. You see it, you stop it. And that makes us happier in the world. So we want you to stick around. We're going to watch this video, and then I'm going to give Cheryl a chance to walk around with the mic and answer some questions. So cue the video.
This water is sacred because life is wrought through and carried in the water. Some places are polluted more, and a lot of places the water's sick, so we pray for that water. It's making our people sick, and it's making our relatives sick.
You want this money? You want this dirty money? You want this dirty money? There's Alta Nahar. You're going to destroy our land. You're going to destroy it. This one's part of destroying our land. This one's responsible. This one's also responsible. Money's our water's more important. Our land is more important. It's because of that. Our ground, our land lasts longer than this. That's nothing. That's poison. Poison everybody. Because of that money. Not even real. Right here is real. This is real. You're real. Our kids aren't real. Our children aren't real. That's real. What you guys do with the earth, our land, our water, our air, that's wrong.
The reason why we this was the major highways that connected all of Mi'kma'ki. When we say we are all treaty people, what does that mean? That means that we are living here. This is where we have fished here since time immemorial, and it's very important for our people that we protect this water. Not only this river, this beautiful river behind me, but all water. This water is connected to our Shubenacadie River watershed that goes right to our community. The streams that are fed from this river go right to our drinking water. That's how connected we are. In our teachings, water is life.
We are all brought here through water, and we are all brought here through that sacred doorway that every woman carries. And that's the connection, the same water that we drink, and that new life is being nourished through, is in water. Something has to be done.
Fantastic. So, any questions for Cheryl? Anybody want to ask?
Oh, you're so quiet. Come on over. I always want to do this. Like a Price is Right or...
Thanks. My name's Noam. I was wondering, you said it was like kind of over a long period of time that you guys had won. Like they started leaving, and like I was wondering how, like, even though it was over a long period of time, how did you make sure that you had was there like a community celebration you had that like really marked the moment, or like how did you kind of make that real for yourself?
When we won, there were so many moving parts to this and so many groups over the years that came and did something. And like when I had the vision at the truck house, it was that vision at the truck house I was sharing on my live stream one day when Dad said, get up, we don't do anything. I went down to the live stream video, and in that vision, the church community, our priest was saying, laughing, saying, oh, we have all the gas don't know we have the switch in the church basement to turn them off. So my live stream that day went out, and it was shared 12,000, 50,000 times in Mi'kma'ki, Nova Scotia. And it was the faith community that was sharing it around. And they all got together, and they did a intervention. They all got together, and the heads of the faith community in Nova Scotia sent a letter to their premier to support us, and sent a public letter to Nova Scotians. That was the nail, I think. That's when they had lost. The drill had already been moved from the province. And then we're winning in courts, but Alta did not give up because they just are so used to saying the lie till they believe it. But when the faith communities jumped on board, I think they lost. And that's when you affect change with the politicians. But it was all of us in Nova Scotia that came together. It became a provincial thing of importance to everybody. And when we won, we were so long waiting for them to tap out and leave. When they won, we had a little few people, maybe 80 come, but we had thousands of Nova Scotians do something, auctions, sharing information, media. Those people never were able to go and have one celebration day. But every time you go to Nova Scotia and you see that majestic river that goes right through our territory, and I live on the Shuby River, it's protected. And that's the reward everybody has. There was no celebration, but we all got rewarded as a province, and it brought the Mi'kmaq community and the non-Indigenous communities together. You know, it was a true sign of reconciliation, and I think we can all do that. I really think there's something everybody, if you all came and said, hey Cheryl, I want to help, what can I do? I will find a job for every one of you, and you will regret the day you met me. Because my kids come up and they say, geez, Mommy always got us doing something. It's just the way I am. I'm like, if this is a job, it needs to be done, let's build a team. So, you know, if you don't have a lot of questions or anything, I think one thing that's important is that we as citizens need an environmental energy bill of rights for human beings, and we need to take over those old charters that give them little leverage in different territories and states have different old instruments that don't work. Tear them up. Tear them up. They don't mean a thing. They will not meet a climate change impact test. They will not make it through a climate lens. So if you really want to adjust climate change, you know, you need that Bill of Rights, and you need to get rid of those companies. It should be non-profit, owned by the people. This is our life, our energy, and we're paying for them to perpetuate a system of debt. That's what they're going to do. So I know that was a big answer to a question that I just wanted to throw in there. Any other questions or anything? Don't be shy, come on. Okay, I'll go here and then there.
Hi, my name's Alex. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. So you mentioned how corporations aren't people. They don't feel, they don't drink water. You also mentioned the stockholders. We're doing some research on Alta Gas's top stockholders. I'm curious if you ever interacted with the individuals behind it, the CEOs, the stockholders, whatever, and did you ever get an impression that they were impacted by your campaign? I guess just trying to grapple with like how an entity like a corporation can become so heartless.
I never once talked to Alta Gas. They didn't see me as important. They went to the chiefs or to the ministers or the premiers and whoever else. They never once talked to me. But I hope they know I'm here now. Right? Let them know I'm here now, you know. But they did come in. I brought all our chiefs and our traditional government together. All of a sudden, somebody invited Alta Gas to have a equal say. I'm like, are you crazy? So one of the chiefs brought in a native lawyer from a big city in Ottawa. They come in with Alta Gas and they're going to talk to us. I'm like, no, you guys are not listening. You're talking over us. You're trying to convince us. You're trying to divide us. So we didn't have anything good from them. And they sat there and their speeches were like robotic. You know, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do this, and jobs, and, you know, it wasn't heartfelt. It wasn't true. You know, I'm not saying they're liars, but they lie a lot. Question back here? Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for your talk. And my name is Joshua Long. And the first question, you answered that with faith communities. This really worked for Interfaith Power and Light. Working with faith communities, and we're in a church. So I have a three-part question. Yeah, I know, sorry.
What's our time? What's our minute time?
Okay.
I just want to know how long my answers can be. 1, 2, 3.
The first question is, why do you think it was the faith communities that was the catalyst that pushed things over? And then also, what about working with faith communities brought together Native and non-Native? And then the third one is more so like for you as an Indigenous person, what was it like to have that spirituality be a catalyst?
I don't say I'm religious or Catholic or not Catholic or anything like that. I was raised Catholic. My mother was very much so. But she was also a seer, I guess. She had dreams and visions, and I inherited that, but I can't tell you the future. But I certainly know when we pray and light our fire and open yourself, the guidance will come. And I think everybody in every religion believes that. There's something we all have. If not, I feel bad because we all have to have something in our heart that lets us know we're not alone on this earth. The Mi'kmaq community, the spiritual community, there's a big divide because the church is the one that put our kids in schools, and so if you talk to some people, they say, I don't like the church. I'm like, well, we're not talking about church, we're talking about good people. I say it was the catalyst because all of them was holding out. They weren't going to tap. They're waiting for a different government, waiting for something else. But when I think that group of voters all got together, I think it changed for the province and the people there. It may not have been Alta Gas even, it may have been the province and the politicians realizing this isn't going to go, our people aren't going to accept it. So I think that might have been part of it, and I think I answered 3 questions in one, sort of like that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
It's not a question, really. It's more of a comment. I'm Karen Fighting. I'm here representing Third Act. I want to thank you for a story of inspiration. We need stories like that to keep us motivated and going forward. And I also want to thank CCAM for your leadership on this. Third Act is a group of elders in our community, and we are fighting against climate change and for democracy. If you are an elder, we'd love to have you come and join us, and we want to join you in resisting Washington gas and supporting no project pipes. Thanks.
I think you guys would be a really good organization to start the mobilization of a energy bill of rights. I think you guys would be a powerful team to start that. So I wouldn't put CCAM starting that because they're an environmental network and they're just out to this. Your voice, the voice of your group is powerful. And my elder said, Cheryl, don't worry about doing anything till your childbearing years are over. When your childbearing years are over and your kids are all off, then you have no fear. And you can probably do the most important work of your life right now. So thank you for standing up and saying that. And I think you guys can be amazing leader. And that's how I said when I build teams, I don't put this person up in this situation. I put the best people up that has the best chance of moving that issue, or the best chance of moving this issue. I would love to get in a room with a whole bunch of lawyers and strategize on being radical and saying, you know what, the legal teams, right? You want to be a good lawyer. You don't want to get just hard. But you have to push the envelope. You have to push your laws, and that's the thing I learned as Mi'kmaq. Every law in Canada was against us. They put us under the Indian Act. They removed us from our land. They put our men in jail. They raped and killed our women. These were all law-making citizens making all these horrible laws against our people. And I think that's why I don't have fear, because if I see a law or an old charter or something, get rid of it. Get rid of those old laws that do not work. And so, don't work within them. I'm also free to hang around too. If you don't want to ask your question out loud or anything, we'll take one more, and then I'll be here if anybody wants to just come up and talk.
you talked about what was it, the truck house? Can you tell us a little bit about the history of that? Was it a treaty what made the truck house a special place? Can you tell us about the treaty?
Yeah. So in 1752, my ancestors signed a treaty with the British. We had a relationship with the French, but the French were here on a handshake. And then in Paris, they gave Mi'kmaq to Britain, peace treaty. And then French left. British came in and thought, and we were always fighting with the French against the British, 1700s, 1600s, 1500s. We've always been fighting. We're fighters. That's why I say we're going to fight to change the law. So when France left, the British thought they had good title to Mi'kmaq, and they just needed to deal with the Indians that keep killing them and keeping them up in the forts. They were afraid to come out. We had the best warriors and well-known warriors. Mi'kmaq were strong. We protected our area and our integrity. So they had to sign a treaty with us, but they didn't sign a land treaty. They thought they just needed peace, so they signed a peace treaty. But they actually forgot. And for 280 some years, they thought they had title, and then they got to the Supreme Court of Canada in 1999, or 1986. That was the first case that came from my community, and my dad, Sonamo Chief Reg Maloney, took this case to the Supreme Court of Canada, and we won. And it said, and these are my dad's words, the judge's words, the treaty is good today as this day it was signed. And that 1752 treaty was pre-Confederation, no land, peace, and they said that we can live our ways, our rights, and they'll stay in their corner, we'll do ours, we won't kill them, you guys leave us alone, fine. And we asked for provision for truck houses so that we can bring our goods to sale on the river. And they wanted the truck house too because they wanted to control things. And one of the things that also happened is the Royal Proclamation, and this is a long answer, but the Royal Proclamation was from King George, and he said, any land that's not sold to the British Crown remains with the Indians. They did it so they could buy all our land. But we didn't sell it. We had a treaty that said it's still ours. So those two things, we have a very strong, probably the strongest Indigenous nation treaty, political standing, stronger than anyone in the country, I believe, probably even in the world. We have a papal bull with Rome in 1600 that says, you stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours, but that recognizes a nation. And when we got baptized so they couldn't conquer our nation. So we are strong. We just had to stand up. We didn't know. We didn't know how strong we were in 1982. They said the Mi'kmaq Treaty of 1752 that allowed for the truck house, they said it wasn't valid anymore. It was superseded by Canadian laws, or we were savage and incapable of entering into agreements. That was the 1982 decision. And now look at us. We have, I believe, it is. We have the strongest, smartest heads of states and visionaries, the Mi'kmaq people. And we have a lot to share. We don't mind sharing it with you guys.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'll be
evening for this inspiring and thoughtful event. For those of you I don't know yet, my name is Naomi Cohen-Shields, and I'm the DC Campaigns Manager for CCAN, and it's just such a pleasure to see so many familiar faces tonight. And I want to give a very special thank you to Cheryl Maloney and her sister April for taking the time to fly here all the way from Nova Scotia to share your stories, lessons, and your wisdom with us. It's been so wonderful to get to know you both, and thank you for everything you've taught us. Many thanks as well to your whole community back home for the brave and tireless fight against AltaGas and more. Thank you again also to Jessica Swan and Kyle, if you're here, maybe, hey Kyle, for joining us today and sharing about the Piscataway Canoe Tribe and your active work with Group Piscataway Eyes. And we look forward to continuing to work together and supporting each other. And thanks to all of our co-sponsors for today's event. So that's Extinction Rebellion DC, We Power DC, Sierra Club DC, Nature Forward, Interfaith Power and Light DMV, the DC Environmental Network, and Third Act DC. And hopefully I didn't forget anybody. You can find more information. You can find more information about all of these groups and how to get involved in the back of the room at action tables we've set up. And we just so appreciate our close partnership across so many areas of work in DC. Yes, Jess with the action tables and the yard signs in the back. And thank you to the whole team at CCAN who helped make tonight happen. To Mike and to Deanna and to Isla, KC and Nicole, and so many other staff members that supported the planning and setup and are here, so thank you all. And one last time, if you were inspired by everything you heard tonight and you want to get involved in local organizing work, please come by the action tables or talk to others in the crowd tonight about how to get involved. All these organizers would be delighted to talk to you about how to plug in, to work to push back against fossil fuel polluters in the DMV, and to support local Native communities. And a few months ago, our team at CCAN received a huge boost of encouragement when we learned about the Mi'kmaq victory against AltaGas. We thought to ourselves, wow, these corporate giants can in fact be beat. And thanks to local organizing, we saw that start to come to fruition in DC this past week with the dismissal of Project Pipes 3, as we've discussed. And so I just feel very much fueled once again by the stories that Cheryl shared this evening and with us today. And I know that together we can put a stop to this multi-billion-dollar gas-guzzling pollution project once and for all. And I hope you all continue to join us. So thank you.